Hey, Howard.
In case you need a lawyer, here's my business card. I'm attorney Howard Ankin.
Oh, hey, Howard.
If you or someone you know has been hurt at work, Ankin Law can get the medical bills paid, the lost wages reimbursed,
Oh, hey, Howard.
and the compensation you deserve.
Hey, Howard.
We're one of the largest filers throughout the state of Illinois of workers' compensation claims. We're here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal, that's Ankin Law.
From your favorite source for Chicago White Sox talk, delivering news, interviews, analysis, and more. This is the Sox Machine Podcast with your hosts, Jim Margalus, James Fegan, and Josh Nelson.
Thanks, Robin. Welcome to a new episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Nelson, and it's Sunday night, August 10th, 2025, as we record this show. I was hoping the Chicago White Sox would go 9-9 over their next 18 games, but they're off to a tough start as they lose another series to Cleveland. Thankfully, the White Sox did win on Sunday thanks to monster home runs from Lenyn Sosa and Colson Montgomery. By the way, did you know that Sosa has a weighted runs created plus over 100 now for the season? And Montgomery is in the top 5 for most home runs hit by a rookie this season? We'll talk more about Sosa Montgomery later in the show. We'll also talk about the Winston-Salem Dash as Jim Margalus got a chance to see them in person. The White Sox take on the Detroit Tigers this midweek series, once again dodging Tarek Skubal. In the end, we'll finish with our weekly conversation about what's happening in Major League Baseball as Jen Pawol breaks a barrier. The Milwaukee Brewers continue to be baseball's best. And it's the city of New York in a real threat of not watching any postseason baseball as the Yankees and Mets are really struggling as of late. Let's get started. Joining me are Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margalus. And hello, gents. James, I guess I can poke fun at myself. You are trying to temper my expectations in the previous podcast episode about being a little crazy, hoping the White Sox go 9-9 in the next 18 games. Well, they lose 2 out of 3 against Cleveland, and they are now 8-22 against the American League Central this season. Is there any concern from Will Venable or Chris Getz about the lack of wins against division opponents this year, James?
I don't think they're really at that stage. It's more about like quality of play. I think if you ask them straight up, like, hey, you worry about not playing the division or not playing the division well, it's like they would say something general like, yeah, we need to beat our division long term. That's a big goal. Like, that's a big part of what they want to do. When they talk about their ambitions, it's like, well, we can compete in the division soon, pretty soon. You don't hear them talk about a lot more than that. But I think they're just at a stage where it's about like, did they play well? Did they not play well? I don't think they're getting to the point where like, well, we think we have a good team or a decent team or an improving team, but the way we're performing against the AL Central stands out from the rest we're doing. But I don't think they're yet at that stage.
Got it. Jim, are you concerned about the lack of success the White Sox have against the AL Central this year?
I would say not yet, but if I were trying to extrapolate any greater meaning from it, I might say that, perhaps the familiarity year after year makes it a little bit easier to game plan against the White Sox. Like if it's like a video game, like they found the glitches that, allow for easy runs or ways to shut down innings. And, you would hope that as the talent level on the White Sox rises, that irons out a little bit versus just womping on overwhelmed players who are being asked to do things above their pay grade. Whereas, when they play teams outside their division, perhaps like they can sneak up on them a little bit. Perhaps they can ambush the fastball a little bit more versus, other teams maybe realizing what they do well and saying like, we're not going to give that to you. So that's, I think right now my concern, or just what I see maybe being reflected by that record. I would say that if you get to where the White Sox were last decade, like we say the Robin Ventura White Sox, where they have ambitions of being great, but then like just Kansas City just pulls the rug out from under them over and over again. That's when you say, okay, we are just being exposed by something and we don't recognize that. And why does that keep happening to us? But I think right now you're just seeing a team that's young and maybe under talented in places and cutting payroll, at least they did year over year, to where you do expect some shortcomings and maybe some teams in the division are better suited to exploit them.
No, those are good points. It just doesn't help my cause right now.
Yeah.
Hoping the White Sox go 9-9 because they still have a few division games. They got a series upcoming against Detroit, which we'll preview later in the show. They got series against Kansas City and the red hot Minnesota Twins. All of a sudden, not sure where that's coming from. But at least the White Sox did win on Sunday. But one of the things I noticed, James, we're starting to see a lot of roster shuffling, especially when it comes to pitchers for the White Sox. We talked about Jonathan Cannon. Was he in threat of being optioned? He did get optioned. 2 new pitchers come up from Charlotte, help out in the bullpen. They get sent down. Cam Boozer, I forgot that he was around. He's back with the White Sox. What's the situation here on the pitching front for the White Sox? Are they running out of fresh arms?
So to speak, like that is why the move got made. You know, the 6-game losing streak, they did not have a single start of 6 innings within it. So, especially with Cannon getting chased in the 2nd inning, Burke getting chased in the 4th inning, Aaron Zavalli having his own troubles. Venable said straight up, like, we need fresh arms. I mean, Wickleman Gonzalez, I think Brian Hudson got kind of lumped in there. It was like, oh, it wasn't about performance. He did give up home runs in both his appearances. But Wickleman Gonzalez was like legitimately good and got sent down. And they did kind of make these 2 claims with Hudson and Peguero. You kind of felt like you were going to see both of them pretty soon. So this move is about that. And I think there's a little uncertainty of how they get through this coming series starter wise. That will go away pretty quickly if you have Martin Perez coming back, maybe even before he even has to get another rehab assignment. And certainly Cannon, I would think he'd be back pretty soon. But at the same time, like I don't think they fired like all their bullets as far as AAA relievers. As far as like young players we'd want to see like get called up maybe near the very end of the season. Like obviously we haven't seen Peyton Pallett yet. It's probably, I don't think we would have been surprised at the start of the season if Peyton Pallett like was a fixture by now. It had come up in June and kind of stuck and, was kind of hanging around the bullpen. So, and Zach Franklin just got called up. I don't think that'd be like a wild person to see, like, at least as a September call up near the end of the year. And, in past seasons, they've had, certainly last year. They've expressed enthusiasm for having starter prospects come up and like be 1-inning guys out of the bullpen. Right now, near Noah Schultz or Hagen Smith really seem like a candidate for that they seem like they would be at the start of the season. And now they're going to the AFL instead, though they did cancel Jake Eater's AFL trip for to pitch in the majors last year, though who can say if that's really the model to follow. Maybe Tanner McDougal is a candidate for that if he's someone who's already inning capped at this point and kind of pitching shorter outings and certainly kind of launch himself into the picture. I don't necessarily, and obviously he pitched on Saturday, so I don't think he's the guy who's going to pitch on Tuesday, but until he's not, Mike Clevenger looms in the darkness waiting for his moment. So yeah, they are shuffling through pitching options. They are facing a little bit of a cliff of like, we anticipate them kind of, I don't think Shane Smith's going to be working longer than 5 innings at any point down the stretch. I certainly think such caps could creep onto things for Sean Burke or even Davis Martin at some point. So they are facing somewhat of an issue there, but I also don't look at AAA. Generally look at Charlotte and think like, oh, what a wasteland. And, it's not like it's teeming with guys that like are good opportunities to eat a lot of innings down the stretch, but I don't think I don't think their powder's completely dry where anyone who comes up is going to be just someone who hit the waiver wire like Peguero and Hudson, but they also might just work the waiver wire again. Like that's still where they're at, team wise, where, they kind of pick up claims when they can.
Bryce Wilson's been really
right there
too over the last 3 starts, 1 run allowed over 14 2/3. So like he's an option as well off the 40-man, but so is Clevenger. So if they want to try to avoid that hellstorm as long as they can, Wilson would be somebody to get in the way of that.
How many new faces? How many different players have the White Sox had this season?
So you've mentioned like them running out. I actually feel like it's slowed a little bit there. I want to Pagero when he pitches will get them to 58. The record was 63 last year, and it seemed in near the end of the first half like they were gonna.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to be 6 feet under by now, but now it seems like it might take them till September to really break it. Some of it's bringing guys back like Jacob Amaya can't count twice, even if he feels spiritually like kind of getting to that level of depth a second time.
Is that counting Tristan Gray or no? Because Tristan Gray was rostered but did not play.
I would have to check with whoever was writing the White Sox game notes about that, but that's a good point. I don't think so, because I don't think he's appeared in a game, and that's what I think they were counting.
Okay, because it would be 59 with Gray.
It doesn't count because I'll forget about Tristan Gray when we do the end of the season Sporkle.
How could
that's
you?
What matters.
Have used 57 players this season is the MLB count that they're using.
There's 44 games left. Like, if the White Sox have to go to the waiver wire again just to get through this season, Jim, it could kind of feel like, at least in the pitching front, the White Sox are running out of gas, or at least sputtering. The engine is sputtering. The offense is hitting home runs. This is great to see. But yes, we are entering the 2000 White Sox era where there's going to be a lot of high scoring games because the White Sox are just running out of pitchers or trying so many new faces.
I guess
I should note DeVitt and Peoples, the other guys from the House of Trade, are obviously worth considering that group as well. I would even expect to see Peoples.
Yeah, both pitched well on Sunday, but I would say that to spin what you were saying a more positive way is that this very well could have been the case over the first 3 months of just the pitching staff being pretty ragged and having a string of uncompetitive starts and injuries and shuffling up and down. And I think the stability of that 1 through 5, despite, most of them being rookies, like Shane Smith being a godsend, like those kind of developments, that really helped keep the White Sox a competitive enterprise and like a watchable professional one, while the offense was, sputtering itself and runs were few and far between. So I would say that, like, if they're going to have this stretch at any time, and I think we could have predicted that this kind of stretch would happen, at least they're hitting, at least they're showing some life in the mid innings. They fall behind early, but if you're trying to just want to be entertained by the White Sox, they are finding ways to do it and get back into games or have these, spasms of power that are pretty fun to watch. So, like, not to be, like Pollyanna about it, but in terms of just, the predictability of the White Sox having a threadbare rotation at some points, has manifested itself now. And so at least it's a time where they're not getting blown out 16-0 because they have no relievers, their bullpen's out of order and the offense is non-existent. Like, I'd rather see some high scoring games, some, 9-6 games or whatever, versus, what we've seen in say like 2024, where you're lucky if they lose 5-2. It's more a matter of, like just games getting away from them, everybody just being embarrassed night after night.
Yeah, if that were the case, like to your point, if we were seeing like those 9-1 type of games right now, the White Sox losing, everyone would be watching NFL preseason, not the White Sox. But the White Sox, with their offense, still giving fans reason to watch. And one of those players, as I mentioned in the intro, is Lenyn Sosa. Lenyn Sosa hit his 14th home run of the season on Sunday to start the scoring for the White Sox. And despite his aggressive style of hitting, Sosa has now reached 103 weighted runs created plus prior to Sunday's game. So that number may bump up a little bit after the Monday morning update. And in his last 45 games, Sosa's weighted runs created plus is 118. So Sosa's been well above league average, not only for the season, but especially in the last quarter of the season. White Sox manager Will Venable believes that Sosa has found the right balance in his offensive approach.
I think that he regulates it. I think we've seen where, we know he's aggressive and you know that there's some chase in there, but we've seen early in the count where he kind of takes a step back and gathers information, and you might see him passive early in the count and, even getting to 2 strikes and then doing damage after 2 strikes. So I think for him, it's just, balancing that out from day to day, from a bat to a bat. And we know he's, ready to go, but, knowing when it's time to kind of scale back and get some information and seeing some pitches.
Chris Getz also agrees with Venable that Sosa has found balance in his swing, but the added strength over the years developing within the White Sox development system has been a factor.
Well, he's always had contact ability, and he's really added some strength. I think he's just got a greater understanding of who he is. When we were around him at 17 years old, there were always a lot of positives. You could tell he was a guy that was looking forward to getting to the box. That's a good sign. Not everyone, has that trait about them. But we've always believed in the player, and most importantly, he's believed in himself, and he's getting a chance to play on a regular basis, and he's taking advantage of it.
Jim, with how well Lenyn Sosa has been hitting recently and for the season, when you look at his body of work, is it time to consider Sosa a regular in 2026?
Put me down for a hard maybe, which is when it comes to
what's a hard maybe?
No, when it comes to Sosa, it's been in my head since reading the Andy McCullough feature on the Brewers and like what makes them so good, the secret sauce, and trying to figure out like why they keep losing parts, they keep losing personnel in the front office, in the rotation, in their everyday lineup, all-star players, guys getting MVP votes, and they still keep owning the Central. And like, why does this keep happening? And one thing, that was said by Pat Murphy, by Christian Yelich, is like, we have expectations for people. We don't expect them to do anything they can't do. Like, they're not going to ask Andrew Vaughn to come up and steal bases, but it's like, you should have an idea of the strike zone, swing at strikes, try to do damage on them. What you're doing at the White Sox is like, that's not going to be able to stay here, but you have an opportunity here. So get after it. And like, he's doing it. And, like with Vaughn, it's hard to know if this is just like the perfectly timed moment of regression that just like storybook for the Brewers, storybook for him. But like at the end of the season, like he might cool off a little bit and you might see like the old flaws resurface. But, there's a kind of a theme of just that, this is the big leagues. We need everybody to do everything they do well as possible. And when it comes to Sosa, he strikes me as like a product of what I'm hoping is the old White Sox player development system. And he kind of reminds me of like, remember the Simpsons episode where they have the fire drill at the power plant and they're looking at their watch and they expect like evacuation to happen in a couple minutes. Like 45 minutes later, Homer comes out of breath and then bars the door behind him, just thinking he won. And that kind of reminds me of Sosa. Like he's a survivor of like the old White Sox player development path. And he's managed to succeed, but it's been so hard earned. And it's still like an imperfect product when it comes to mistakes. And, I would say like he's in that lineage of like Adam Engel was the same way of just like year after year, Engel manages to get probably way too many plate appearances, way too many games played because of just lack of talent. And eventually he fashions himself as like a major leaguer in a limited role. But still, like, it was just a lot of losing that went into that. And like, I guess Brooks Baldwin is kind of like in that line now of just like, he keeps having these drops in left field. Like, even if you don't think he's a, maybe a true outfielder, like the balls that he's missing is just, Will Venable said it was a sense of urgency. I would say it's more like attention to detail or like basic footwork of just, having the ball get behind him or not looking the ball in his glove. It's weird, but you have these guys who just make a lot of mistakes along the way, and then they just hammer themselves into being productive players. But, I get to the point of just like when it comes to Sosa and the mistakes that he makes, like, testament to him for overcoming, just the sheer numbers game of just becoming a major league regular. And especially when it comes to his plate approach and the strikeouts to walks, like it's a hard way to make a living. And right now he's doing it. But is it more of like the second division regular to where like he's a standout player, or can get 600 plate appearances on a bad team, but like a good team would never expect him to play that much, and maybe a good team when they look at his offense and defense and like the fact that he kind of has reverse splits, so he's not like a righty who hits lefties. If you're asking him like what does he do well or how can he fit this team, like he still strikes me as like a square peg in, I guess for a good team would be a round hole, and just like can try to cram him in there, but just it would be very tough to do so. So that's why I'm kind of torn on him in terms of his future. Like it's cool that he's hitting as well as he is. Like I like seeing him do that, but until the rest of the game shapes up or until he finds a defensive home for a team that like wants to get better and wants to eliminate the mistakes and the parts of it that make them look, the aesthetics of a losing team, he still has that around him. So that's why, like, I want to see the rest of the season play out and just see where exactly his home is, because, as this infield gets crowded, and they start to have defensive expectations for some guys, I wonder where he fits.
James, is it time to consider Sosa regular, even going to next season?
So like, I think in terms of like projecting guys in everyday regular, usually you project it at a certain position, and I don't know really what Sosa's position is, but I do know that he can hit, and I think he's usually, especially over the course of the season with the injuries or shortfalls you encounter, it's probably pretty easy to go through and find games where like he's one of the best 9 options offensively you could put in. Now it might be first base, it might be second base. It's probably still a little shallow for it to be DH, but it's not going to be like, I see him having a role on a roster. I think it's worthy to have him on board and even taking a lot of at bats, but I don't know exactly if I'd say it's hard to predict what will be the position he plays most year to year. Second base seems to be what they're saying he's best at now, but obviously he's kind of going to rate below average. You can probably pick up, a good defensive impact by upgrading the defense of that position from him. He's probably still a little shy to play defense on the corners. You'd think that third base would be something he can do, but certainly hasn't done at all really this year. First base has had some weird issues, and being a guy who can make strange decisions, it's within his like athletic skill set to play first base. But if he's going to show like, if there's going to be a long acclimation to it in terms of mistakes, like the mistakes can be very impactful. So I think he's kind of a piece of the roster. Obviously can't option him. So it's very easy to see him in the mix next year, saying him as a regular. I think like, if, we're using the Fangraph system to put him as like, put like an FV on him, you'd probably put 45 because 50 would imply like everyday regular at a certain position. And I don't think we can quite get there on it. That said, like, I think how I comment on Lenyn confuses the readers a little bit because obviously his mistakes are noteworthy. But I also think like he's really cool. As the way like Jim alluded to, like he's kind of a sole survivor from this era of both White Sox IFA operations, especially at that price point, and the player development system, especially for guys who came from the academy. So you ding him for being like kind of unpolished in a lot of ways, but it's clear that like where his player development origins from, like he had to kind of like out talent and outwork his way out of a lot of things that there just wasn't a system in place that was producing a lot of viable big leaguers alongside him. It's not like he was not taking in instruction that was being successfully applied elsewhere. Some of that could be talent pool. And, in referencing, when asking Chris Getz about him this weekend, he's a GM now. He has to give a very like diplomatic answer, but I could tell like the smile of recognition, like this is a player who's developed really uniquely and you've been on hand for all of it. But part of that was like when he first got up, and the reason we were excited about him is he posted like a really low strikeout rate for his age. He struck out like less than 15% of the time in like short season rookie balls as a 17-year-old. And even watching his first couple of years in the minors, he's this kind of small, undersized, not super athletic, but like contact slap hitter. And we're kind of thinking like, well, if he can stick it short and he hits for really high average, maybe it work. It's so much reflective of like Lenyn's work that he's really yoked up, especially in his lower half now. Like that's something a transition he really made in 22, where he has like this power that's made him viable in a way that we didn't really see of him as a young prospect, even someone we were monitoring. And for him to be like tied for the team lead in home runs, obviously it took underperformance from people with a little bit higher ceilings, but it speaks to like it's been slow, it's been weird, but this dude's already evolved in a way that like his peers have not been able to.
Yeah.
It's weird to like I'm really hesitant to count him out, even while he like the issues seem very glaring at times because he's been like such a survivor and evolver, albeit slow and in weird ways. Something he said Sunday, post game that I thought was interesting because I was asking about like preseason, we thought like, well, maybe Lenyn takes a step forward if his chase goes down. His chase is up from last year. He's more aggressive than ever. But he mentioned like getting to his power, and he was saying things that he said before about like what he's done to his strength program and his gym, what he's done to his body. But he said like, oh, I'm also trying to catch the ball out in front a lot more because you need that for power. And I was like, well, that's something new, and it also explains a little bit the aggression and also some of the power we're seeing. Like even as he's swinging at a lot of things that seemingly he shouldn't, that he's kind of dialing his approach to make a more of a skill set and is just kind of getting to it now where we're seeing pop that seemed like he had in a right center gap to gap intonation, even as he was kind of breaking out as a prospect in 2022, that it's coming with more pull side home runs this year. That's making him an above average hitter. He's up to 106 WRC plus for today, by the way.
Thank you.
That's interesting that he's adding that. Like the ad's a little slow to his bag. He's a I don't think he's 6 feet tall, right hitter. Like it's you don't usually get gassed on these guys like offensive ceilings, especially if they don't have any positional versatility, but he kind of like slowly keeps adding things in a way where like, yeah, I think he's in the mix next year. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know how much better he's going to get. I don't know if it's going to back up in some weird way. That's like, in every way, I find Lenyn a very fascinating player. Like it's always changing. It's always doing things I don't quite expect, for good and bad. I really mean it.
Yeah, Lenyn, and again, we'll get the updates on Monday morning on Fangraphs. He could pass or at least tie Mike Tauchman as the most valuable White Sox position player, according to WAR on Fangraphs.com. No one on the position player front has hit 2 WAR yet. But Lenyn Sosa's got a chance. He's got a chance to hit 20 homers this year. Again, he's got 14. Again, I've been out on Lenyn Sosa for a while. The defense, the base running. But if he's going to hit like this, I'm just going to have to accept the wild Lenyn Sosa experience. Because to both of your guys' points, it is fun. You can't predict it. Constantly surprised, both good and bad. But it's entertaining. And that's what we need this year.
Yeah, my theory is right now is that like Lenyn is exactly as good as he needs to be. Like no matter what, like he just keeps rising along with the tide. So I mean, like theoretically, the White Sox could be getting better. And like this is the year with that Lenyn just kind of plays himself out of a role, or we add too much, and like he just keeps getting better. Like nope, still here. Like just you throw him out, and then he appears behind you. Another Simpsons meme. But yeah, it's. As much as you want to, rag on him for the mistakes, like I guess another guy would be like this is Reynaldo Lopez in terms of just, hits walls and you think like he's done ready to count him out. And then just like, oh, there is a very real issue. I figured it out and now I'm great. And then like, the White Sox kind of play him in ways that they shouldn't. And then he kind of loses luster with the White Sox, but then like the Braves take a chance on him and he turns into an all-star and, he's hurt again. But just, the guys who can just evolve and not let a lot of failure beat them down, I think is always very impressive. And so like, that's why, like James was saying, like keeps evolving, but also like just the fact that he keeps getting just better as the White Sox are getting better in a way that just keeps pace. He's almost like a pace car for the team. He's always there. He's always just above the waterline. And if he keeps doing that, then like he might peak at like age 34, which is, something to think about.
Well, along with Lenyn Sosa hitting his 14th home run, Colson Montgomery hit his 9th home run of the season on Sunday with a torpedo bat. A monster 452-foot shot into the right field concourse. Huge home run from Montgomery. It's the farthest home run hit by a White Sox hitter this season at right field. And again, Montgomery is hitting much better in the majors than he did in the minors this season. White Sox general manager Chris Getz believes that there's an element of Montgomery not having to stress about reaching the majors now that he's here. And of course, the torpedo bats are helping.
Get players that get so much prospect attention. They're at the top of the rankings, and almost, especially when it happens earlier in their career. And you're talking about a high school player that, that timeline's going to be a little bit different, perhaps, than maybe a college player. And maintaining that status is a difficult thing. And then, once you're kind of knocking on the door and you're trying to get over the hump and just break into the major leagues, there's an added element of stress that comes with that. And so I do believe that him coming up here just has freed him up and allowed him to be the player that we knew he could be. And then I guess you got to give some credit to the torpedo bat, considering how often that's been getting attention throughout the league, and it looks like he's a beneficiary of it as well. But Colson's done a really nice job on the defensive side, both at shortstop and third base, in which he hasn't played a ton of third. He looks very comfortable over there. Most importantly, but in the box, he's a threat at the plate. He's trying to do damage, and it's really exciting for the organization. And I'm sure Colson is just as excited to be able to be a productive major league player.
Gents, we got this question on Twitter from Mike Locks, and Mike wrote to us, is Colson Montgomery going to have the best rookie season for a White Sox position player since Jose Abreu? Right now, he's got a higher weighted runs created plus than Eloy did, and he's certainly going to surpass Eloy in WAR for his rookie season. Jim, I'll start with you. Is this the best White Sox rookie hitting season, even though it's been only 30-some games for Colson Montgomery, since Jose Abreu when Abreu won Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, in terms of hitting, seems like it could be. Like, you have to guard against the very real swing and miss in his game, which I think, Eloy, when he came up, was a more polished hitter, had better plate coverage, sometimes to his detriment. Would hit a lot of balls in the ground and sometimes, too many double plays. But, he didn't have the strikeout issues that Montgomery might have in terms of just like the contact rate. So, with that in mind, that, there could be a league adjustment to where like he opens up a new hole in his zone and they hit him with it over and over again, and he has that like month-long rut that was always possible. That could be the case, but until he shows that in like the per game production, the fact that his power is just very, very, very real, seems like he should be able to outpace Eloy in terms of like a per game type production. The fact that Jimenez did get to 500 plate appearances, kind of skews a little bit, have a bigger sample size, more of the season, more of adjustments. So I wouldn't necessarily downplay that, but when you factor in like the defensive value that Montgomery provides is like a decent shortstop, I think is probably fair to say right now. Might be good, might be better than we thought, but in case there's like a bad small sample around the corner that kind of negates his early value. I'm on guard against that, but like I would say he's decent so far. Then yeah, he should be pretty much surpassing Eloy, and then you get to like Tim Anderson, who was had a nice rookie season, but more of a defensively weighted one, like the value of his shortstop play versus like anything he was doing like tremendously offensively. So yeah, I think Abreu is probably the one he's chasing, and with so little season left, he's not going to get there, but still, good company to have.
It's still weird to me that Eloy hit 31 home runs his rookie season and never hit 20 in a season afterwards. I know COVID, that impacted. He had 14 homers in 2020. Of course, then again, he got hurt. So no idea.
His rookie season was the ultimate juicy ball season. And it felt like
true.
Probably one of the less notable 31 homer rookie campaigns of all time.
Yeah. Eloy, for those that don't remember, had a 115 weighted runs created plus. His defense was so bad, it dropped his WAR to 1.1 on the season in 122 games. Colson's going to be right around 1 WAR after the 31 game mark. of the season. So to Jim's point, the defensive versatility and the defensive position at shortstop, and Montgomery playing well at shortstop so far, it's going to help out his WAR total. James, do you agree with that assessment? Is this the best hitting rookie season for a White Sox position player we've seen since Jose Abreu?
So hitting, like I'm only analyzing the offense.
Well, actually, the question is Colson Montgomery going to have the best rookie season? So I guess you should incorporate all aspects of the game.
Because like to lean into like my heel answer, very easy for the Narv dog, a catcher, to rack up like over one WAR of just like catching defense. I think he was like 1.3 or 1.4 in 2017. So that's out there. Don't forget about him. This is almost like, I think Colson's at like 31 games. This is probably almost exactly at the point in 2020 where like Luis Robert, like rookie season looked like an all-timer and he was clearly going to be rookie of the year. I think just the playing time, the league adjusting to you, the league adjusting to, what your swing path and coverage looks like with a torpedo bat. It's not like this. What he's shown us is obviously real and very relevant as far as like the evolutions in approach and attacks that Eloy went through 500 plate appearances as a rookie, or even just Robert having 2 months could tell us a lot. It's a profile where he accumulates a lot of value in single swings and can also go through spates of non-contact where you could probably take away a lot of value in spurts as well. So yeah, he looks great. He's on pace for that. To project like, oh yeah, done deal. I don't think that's not really the nature of Colson's game. It's going to be big booms and it's going to be big highs and hopefully not as many lows. But I think the nature of it's not going to be Joey Gallo shaped necessarily, but I think you're going to get, games where he looks like the best player in the world, and also games where like there's more swing and miss and it's harder for him to impact and create value than, somebody who has a higher contact rate. Right. Chase Mydroth is probably like a more steady build than Colson was going to be in terms of value accumulation. So it's hard to project from here exactly. Certainly looks great. Amazing homer. Normally, I don't love having the press box on the first base line for a lefty hitting a ball to the moon. Incredible angle. Said lots of expletives in person and online, and the immediate reaction on seeing that.
I will say that when they're building the new park, they need to have a better outfield for home runs. We've talked about this before, and just how the generic nature of the right field outfield just flattens everything. Even this one, like, reached a concourse, but the concourse shot it back into the park. So even then, like, the ball didn't disappear; it bounced back. And like, they briefly had the goose out there, and that was the kind of thing where, okay, that adds some interest, some visual drama to a long homer hit in that direction. Like, will it reach that? And you're seeing the limitations. Like, even the grainy footage of Joe Borchard pre-HD of reaching the concourse, it just bounces. Like, it's very bland. So I think, when they're trying to draw up the new ballpark, they really have to figure out how to make homers more exciting. The one guy I was thinking of in terms of kind of boom and bust, and his rookie season was more like the playing time is more meted out in terms of like accruing them many plate appearances. But like Jake Berger might be like a better example of really awesome highs and then some what are you doing stretches of just, should you go back to Charlotte? Is that kind of what you have in mind, James, for just raw strength making itself apparent, and then some very exploitable gaps in his game that make you wonder if he's going to stick around?
I don't want it to be that. I hope it's not. I'm just saying, like, because it's the nature of his game, like, I think it's always dangerous to be like, react to a particular high and be like, well, it's kind of like Homer talking about the pumpkin stocks continuing to trend up. But like, I think the shape of his production makes it particularly like shaky to ever like take a month and be like, he's on pace for the greatest thing ever. Like, I just don't think that's the shape that a big power hitter season's really going to take.
So you are both saying maybe.
I'm saying no
Mike's
heart of
question.
eyes.
No. Okay. James is going with a no. Jim, are you back to your hard maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I can see him doing it. Just a matter of like the competition isn't that great. It's kind of, I would say, if he's running among Anderson and Jimenez in terms of like around that 2 WAR range, like he might have the most entertaining version of that, just with the highs he's able to provide versus like the Anderson being more of like, I'm playing a credible shortstop over a great amount of games. I don't have to do that many things well offensively to be a major league regular. And Jimenez, again playing in the the insane 2019 season, but also being like a hitter of some gifts that I think just injuries wore him down. But early on, when he was a prospect and a major leaguer through like the first few injuries, like he could hit around his natural limitations.
Yeah, a reminder for Luis Robert, in the month of August of that 2020 season, Robert had an OPS over 1,000 in his rookie year. September, 409. He dropped off. I remember those conversations because Julio Rodriguez ended up passing Luis Robert. No, it wasn't.
Kyle Lewis.
Kyle Lewis. Yes.
Now it's a real time capsule.
It sure
award.
is. Sure is.
Who's laughing now?
Let's have a farm report from Jim as he got a chance to check out the Winston-Salem Dash this weekend. And Jim, how do the Dash look?
Feisty, I would say. Their record, they have the worst record of any White Sox affiliate, and they've been at the bottom or towards the bottom of the Sally League standings. A lot of one-run losses, a lot of
sound like future White Sox.
Yeah, pretty much. And like the bullpen isn't the starting rotation has been like a little bit shaky, although they did graduate Tanner McDougal. They have Christian Hopper there now. Lucas Gordon got promoted to Birmingham himself. So they've had stars in that rotation. They've also had just like a lot of pitching staff filler that I think you see happen. But the thing that's kind of been weird about the White Sox position player side is that we're seeing this now with Jacob Gonzalez going to Charlotte, is that with nobody moving in Birmingham, like Gonzalez was the first hitting prospect promoted to Charlotte. It took until late July, but like nobody from Birmingham, even like Wilfred Veras is repeating the level, Gonzalez is repeating the level, even Riku Nishida repeating the level. Like guys had been there a long time and accruing a lot of games and still not getting promoted to Charlotte because, whether it's their own limitations as hitters or the Southern League just being impossible to hit in, just nobody's been producing. And now we're seeing Gonzalez like first week or so in Charlotte looking actually pretty good, hitting, making the outfielders turn around, hitting the ball over the fence, and not in Charlotte too, in Syracuse, which is, I think, plays more neutral. He's been an interesting case, and you have this log jam of nobody moving in Birmingham, so nobody moves in Winston-Salem. So you've had guys like Sammy Zavala there all year, and doing okay, has some fits and starts, but I think the arrow's been pointing up. But he's also been there for a while. Gerald Perez had a nice series. He's been there all season. Probably would be a case for like maybe a late season look at Birmingham if they're looking to kind of get his feet wet there in anticipation next year, assuming that he continues this little upturn through the rest of the month. But yeah, I think there's this weird running in place kind of phenomenon I think going on at certain positions. Antonacci went up, Braden went up, but otherwise just, and you're seeing it too, down to Wolkow and Ronnie Hernandez. And, Bonnemer's been playing all year in Kannapolis. He should be moving up, but just, you've had a lot of guys who have been producing or have at least been accruing a lot of games and not being promoted. So I am curious to see how it shakes out going into either the end of August or early September to see exactly like where assignments go, because you are seeing a little bit of a bottleneck at certain places.
Well, the draft league is also ongoing. Thank you to all of our Sox Machine subscribers. We're going to send James down to Arizona to cover the draft league and get a first look at the new draftees, the Chicago White Sox selected this past July. So that'll be pretty exciting. But to your point with the logjam, I bring up the draft league, Jim. These guys need to start hitting because you got Billy Carlson, you got Jaden Fosk, you got next year's draft class. They just can't play Birmingham forever. So at some point, they're either going to have to be forced to Charlotte or the White Sox are just going to have to go another route. Because has anyone played 3 straight seasons in Birmingham?
Oscar Colas, is he?
Because like playing back to back.
I mean, like there have been org guys who have done that, but in terms of like
no one's spoken well of the experience, but yes,
yeah,
surely.
yeah, a lot of org guys have done it, but in terms of like prospects of note, and no, Colas played in Birmingham 2022 and 2025, but he did not go back there in between. So
got it. Well, hopefully, at least somebody in the Dash though has hit double-digit home runs this year. Unlike Birmingham, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Doesn't seem like the Barons need the home runs right now. They continue to play pretty good baseball. For the Chicago White Sox, they continue with their homestand. They wrap it up for the midweek series against the Detroit Tigers. The Tigers are still in first place in the American League Central. They're 6 games ahead of Cleveland. They're 68-51 of the season. The Tigers won on Sunday. They're kind of sputtering, though. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games. Away from Comerica this year, the Tigers are 29-27. Against the White Sox, the Tigers are 5-2 on the season. They've outscored the White Sox 39 runs to 25. Your pitching probables for this series, Monday night, 6:40 p.m. Central Time. It is Pokemon Go night. If you're still playing that game, Chris Paddock against Elvis Peguero for the White Sox, who'll be making his debut with the White Sox. Tuesday night, 6:40 p.m. Central Time, it's Grateful Dead night. Jack Flaherty will take the ball for Detroit versus to be determined for the White Sox. And then on Wednesday, the Tigers don't know who they're going to have starting yet, but it will be Shane Smith for the White Sox and Getaway Day. All right, Jim, you got me. Who's Elvis Peguero? I know that you got a chance to watch him as he's part of the Milwaukee Brewers and he's been in Nashville. What should White Sox fans expect from Elvis?
he's a typical, I think, 2020 sinker slider guy. The sinker can be like 95, touching 97, throws a slider half the time. Some innings, especially in AAA, looks like, why is he here? He should be in the majors. Like this is a major league arm. And then other innings, he walks himself into trouble or hits a guy and creates his own problems. So like he's been up and down with Brewers and has some moments, but also I think pitches himself into trouble too much to count on him. But I feel like when I go to Sounds games as a civilian, I probably shouldn't have a beer just because like I'm at the point of where like every game I go to feels like it's working. How much crossover there's been between the Brewers and like I've saw Vinny Capra a bunch when he was with Nashville. It feels like at any moment somebody's going to come up and I'm going to need to have like a book on them. So I should maybe bring my scorebook, take notes, and not have the bourbon and Coke slushies in the right field corner skew my vision.
James, I know you talked about it early in the show, lots of shuffling as far as arms. What's the plan of attack for the White Sox on Monday and Tuesday's game against Detroit, at least on the pitching front, is when it comes to strategy?
Monday is supposed to be bulk Tyler Alexander, and Peguero is just kind of an opener for him. Tuesday, your guess is as good as mine.
Great.
I would bet a lot of Mike Vassal's involved, but as far as like figuring out a starter, I don't know, because you can. I don't think they sent Cannon down for nothing, so I don't think they're going to have him come back up via like, hey, someone got injured, so that's why he's just making his regular start again. Martin Perez, they do sound much more interested in, less committed to him getting a third rehab outing, so he could come back pretty straight away. Venable said he'll get reassessed after a bullpen in Chicago, but his last start was on Friday. Granted, he only threw 4 innings, but it'd be surprising to bring someone back from a several month-long flexor injury on a short rest from their last rehab start. That would be, I feel, unconventional. Aaron Savali would be on short rest. He won't be on full rest till Wednesday. Shane Smith was the person who would be his slot up. They have announced him as the probable for Wednesday. Sure, they've been giving Shane Smith extra rest all the time, but who's going to pitch Tuesday? I don't know. Normally it would be Cannon. Certainly you could say like, he's had 3 bad games, bullpenning it one day or at least one turn through before Perez is back is better than, getting nuked for 7 runs in 2 innings. But this is kind of the reason why I thought it was unlikely that they would pull the plug on Cannon for this is still there. It's just they decided to do it anyway. I just don't know quite how they managed the innings, having demoted him. As I said earlier, like Clevenger really recently started. I don't know. We'll see. They'll figure it out. They're a major league team. They're big boys. Maybe Smith being listed for Wednesday is a misprint, and this entire segment's a waste of time. I don't know. Good luck to them.
You got this, Will. We believe in you. You can figure it out. Oh, great. Well, the pitching front's going to be interesting for the White Sox on Monday and Tuesday. Shane Smith did throw well in his last start, so we'll see how he handles the Tigers on Wednesday. I think a big question for me in this series, can the White Sox avoid allowing a home run to Kerry Carpenter? 7 games this season for Kerry Carpenter against the White Sox. 6 home runs. As a matter of fact, he only has 7 hits against the White Sox. 6 of them have gone for a home run. Jim, does Kerry Carpenter hit a home run against the White Sox in this series?
Probably. I'll say yes. Just having seen Josh
Not a hard
Naylor.
baby. This is more definitive.
Yeah. Well, just having seen Josh Naylor look like Josh Naylor against the White Sox, no matter different uniform, different time zone. Nope, still does it. I'm just counting on the inevitability that seems in play here. So sure.
Are you going with the same, James? Are you expecting Kerry Bonds to reemerge for the Tigers against the White Sox?
He better not, because it seems like the reason to demote Cannon is to hide him from this matchup. I'm trying to look up how many. I think he's just hit 3 homers off of him in 10 plate appearances.
Yeah.
He could throw Tyler Alexander at him for at least 2 at-bats, I'd imagine, on Monday, and tell Smith to throw only seam effect changes at Kerry Carpenter, see if that works. It's supposed to be a hard pitch to lift, if nothing else. You can just walk him. It's August, it's hot. It's a great park for lefty hitters to hit out of. He's facing a pen game of some kind on Tuesday. Yeah, probably. I don't have any reason to feel good about this.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Has anyone? I have to look at StatHead. I gotta imagine someone back in the day when division game you face your division opponents 19 or 18 times in a season. Someone's hit 10 home runs against the White Sox in a season, right? I have to imagine. Not saying that Kerry Carpenter
that's
are
a
encouraging.
lot.
It is a lot, but he's already got 6 in 7 games. He's going to face the White Sox 6 more times.
I can to answer that question because I have an example looking up of Trey Michael Chesky did play not only 4 straight years with the Barons, but 3 straight years where he's over 100 games with the Barons. So I think that's your clearest example.
It's been a long time we have mentioned the name Trey Mialocheski.
Has it? Because he's only 30 years old.
It's got to be 10 years. I think the last time we talked about him was 2016. So 9 years?
Okay, so I'm looking it up. 10 homers. Nobody's done it in the modern era, or at least since expansion. Albert Bell and Juan Gonzalez did it 9 times, homer 9 times. Bell in 13 games, Gonzalez in 17 games in 1995 and 2001, respectively.
Oh yeah, because Juan was with Detroit.
Yeah, the Nelson Cruz had 8 in 16 games in 2019 during the Bomba Squad era Twins.
Okay, so
Matt Davidson hit 8 against the Royals in 2018, and that always struck me as the most distended example of one guy going off against a team. One of the last ones he hit in Kauffman Stadium, I remember going in the air and just all of the Royals beat writers just going what the hell? What is with this guy? I saw a notebook go flying into the air, just that struck me as the pinnacle of what is going on here. Probably some of it was a little bit who is Matt Davidson? Why is he destroying it? 6 of them were probably in April too, so that was an element of it. But if someone's hitting more than Matt Davidson, I think an investigation has to be put in.
Well, I mean, Carpenter's got a chance now. So if the modern record is 9 with Albert Bell and Juan Gonzalez, Carpenter just needs to hit 4 more in 6 games against the White Sox to reach 10 home runs against them in 2025. I'm hoping that is not the case. And again, we'll recap as far as that series during our midweek Sox Machine podcast episode. But as we always do for the Monday shows, we wrap up the show, taking a look around Major League Baseball, some highlights. Jen Pawol, she broke the barrier. She becomes the first woman umpire in Major League Baseball. She was actually behind home plate in Sunday's game between the Miami Marlins and the Atlanta Braves. Awesome to see. I hope that there are more coming. We've seen women referees in the National Football League and the NBA. So finally, the barrier has been broken for umpires. Jen Pawol, the first woman umpire in Major League Baseball history. The Milwaukee Brewers continue to be the best team in Major League Baseball. They're 73-44. They have won 9 straight games. They are now 6 games ahead of the Chicago Cubs. And the question that I have for you guys, before I ask you what's catching your attention around Major League Baseball, are the Yankees and Mets in trouble? Because, man, does this make great sports radio fodder, especially in New York. If the season were to end today, the New York Yankees would be the 6th seed. They're only a half game ahead of Cleveland for the final spot in the American League postseason picture. The New York Mets would also be the 6th seed. They got a little bit more space. They're a game and a half ahead of Cincinnati for that final spot. But the Yankees are 3-7 in their last 10. The New York Mets are 1-9 in their last 10. The Mets have a 7-game losing streak. Jim is someone that used to live in New York State, and you're quite well aware on how things can get hysterical when it comes to the Yankees and the Mets. Should New York baseball fans be worried that neither team makes a postseason?
A little bit. I think the Yankees are more interesting and dramatic than the Mets are. Like, I think the Mets, there have been some unlucky games. They have some injuries in the rotation and bullpen to deal with, but should get nothing critical yet. I'm not buying the wild card. The Hunters, I guess. The Reds are maybe the next closest, and I don't know if they're the kind that can overtake the Mets. So I'm not buying the competition as much. So I think I'm more certain about them. But like the Yankees, I think what's weird about them is that they've been kind of run on autopilot. Like, it's a good autopilot. But like Brian Cashman's been there forever. Aaron Boone's been there forever. And you could just see it. Like, if they're going to decay, they just, Hal Steinbrenner might let it happen. Like, it's a case where they're, that Boone, I don't know if he's the best manager. He certainly really seems like more of like a one who's slow to react and not throw guys under the bus, but also like, there have been situations that gotten away from him. He just doesn't really have a reaction. I think he tends to manage probably off the binder, as they would say during the Joe Girardi days, like pretty strenuously. And like when it works, it's fine. But I think like he's not necessarily a problem solver. So, as these problems mount, like it could be a case where, if they don't react, then maybe the Rangers pass them because the Rangers, I think, you have a little bit of life in them. I buy them more than the Guardians and the Royals among the runners up in the wild card race. But the thing that strikes me when it comes to like the Yankees is if they did fire Boone, like I could see that being enough to kick him in the butt. Like reminds me of the Ned Yost firing for the Brewers late in 2008. I'm looking at them. Where they're just kind of listing at the end of the season. And then, they had Sabathia that year. Like Sabathia was giving it their all and just, they were at risk of falling out of the playoff race. They lost 1, 2, 3, like 9 out of 10 at one point in September. And then they fire Sabathia or they fire the Yost. Sabathia continues rolling. They win, 7 of the last 8 to get in the postseason. So I could see it being as simple as like just needing to fire Aaron Boone, and then all of a sudden the talent wins out again, and just it's clarifying enough to where they get their heads out of their asses and look like the Yankees enough to take a wild card spot. But if it is a case where like Cashman's committed to Boone and ownership's committed to Cashman because they're not interested in finding other people. And I could see it like being a case where it lasts all season and they do get surpassed by, I think the Rangers are the most likely, but even then the Guardians, you can't kill them either.
Yeah, Seattle has won 7 straight games. They're 9-1 since the trade deadline. They have a 3.5 game lead over the Guardians for the final spot. The Guardians are the outside looking in, so they have a 3.5 game cushion. The Red Sox have a 2.5 game cushion as well. James, are you worried about the Yankees and Mets making the postseason?
I'm not worried about it because it doesn't affect me in any way, but mostly I'm intrigued because I want the wild card races to have some juice and they kind of lack it. You see like on the NL side, like the Reds are really kind of the only team that was like outside of the playoff picture that pushed to do in it. Like the Giants are only 4 games back, but they pretty much openly said that they didn't play well enough and sold at the deadline. So as much as like it seems impossible that the Mets seem like this loaded would kind of continue to wilt the way they have, I hope so because it'd be more interesting than just kind of watching the 6 teams that decided they're going to the playoffs go to the playoffs on each side. So something to spice it up. I hope so, but they both seem like this seems like a prime case of what are we freaking out where it's not really too late for them and they're kind of too loaded and they're maybe at their lowest point. And there's plenty of time for things to still normalize. Did want to say privately, still, surprising that, this is the first woman umpire debuting this weekend, a job where people who don't know what goes into your job scream at you about what your job is all the time. Seems like a role that we've put women in American society historically. So I don't know why there's been like this oversight, but glad that it's finally been rectified.
It was funny when I was at Winston-Salem or at Bowling Green watching Winston-Salem and JJ Cooper wrote a good post about, using Pawol as the impetus for it, but talking about just what minor league umpires have to do going up the chain and like how they are graded pretty harshly while working 2-person crews and A-ball and goes up to 3 and then goes up to 4. And if they're lucky, then they can get maybe crew chief status and then maybe they can get some games, but it's just like a long climb. And, if their numbers aren't great and, at the wrong time, they can be phased out and never given a second look. So I was watching the umpires just, having read that and having that reinforce my mind and just like, it's not an easy job. And you can see like the ones, they're very pleasant umpires during the Winston-Salem Bowling Green series, chatting with the first base coach. You can hear him talking to the first baseman. Somebody on the dash I did not recognize. They were not wearing a jersey and didn't recognize them on face, but came out to apologize day before. Like, I guess they overreacted to a call that turned out that was right. Like, and say, hey, no problem. Like, just, it was very, very congenial and amenable to just, the give and take of it all, and just realizing like it's, at that level, it is love of the game stuff or love of calling the game. I saw everybody rushing to, wanting to see the ump scorecard. It's not out yet for the game. Tends to be the next morning. I'm curious about it too, but also like it's one game. It's a whole lot of pressure. Just, you'll see, assuming she's like other AAA umpires, she'll be up and down over the next few years, like doing a, just spot duty here and there because so few jobs open up. So, these are the auditions they get. And it tends to be like it seems like a 5 to 7 year process for an umpire to go from that spot duty to getting a full major league job if they're considered for it. So, one game, a very important game, but hopefully it's just, there will be a sample size to build up to where like, if it was, what would be like an 87%er, for the ump scorecards, like, unimpressive, what are they doing here? They're supposed to be good. There's future samples to come and, they realize like, oh, it's just AAA umpire, figuring it out.
James, what's catching your attention around Major League Baseball?
I kind of like I kind of thought all year that Boston was going to be better than they were. So now they're kind of, obviously lost on Sunday, but and Giolito had a rough fifth inning that I was watching Saturday night as well. But in general, they've kind of launched themselves where they're right in the thick of the picture, and probably more likely to make the playoffs than not at this point, and maybe even, contend for the division. I think that's going to get tied into the Devers trade inevitably, and maybe that was kind of the thing that jump-started them, or a little bit of a shot across the bow a little bit. But I also felt like that was a team that was, I didn't think we had seen their fastball through the course of the year. Certainly the team that rolled in and played the White Sox didn't seem to be in gear just yet. Um, so seeing them kind of play well, I feel like the narrative around them, because it's been such an insane year news-wise for them. I feel like I've become a decent sized consumer of Red Sox media, not because I like empathize with the fan base, but just because I find them entertaining. There's also so many former White Sox there. Above all, the top line thing is obviously that Romy Gonzalez is unstoppable, and trying to sneak him through waivers while he's rehabbing from injury will go down as one of the greatest mistakes in the franchise history. But
if Romy was here, you wouldn't be able to watch Lenyn.
Or Romy would be playing like the outfield like all the time again. Or he'd probably have like a weird Brooks Baldwin like existence, or just not be hitting. But it is interesting to see him as a player, because for so long we kind of saw him as the White Sox kind of maybe certainly overhyping how ready he was when they're kind of selling him as, oh, maybe he'll become our starting second baseman, or maybe he'll become like part of a right field platoon. But now that he's kind of been lost, so to speak, and I think his injury played a big part in that, seeing signs of what they were identifying with him, does it make you feel better? Does it make you feel worse? Does it make his path make more sense or less? I really don't know. But man, he can really hit lefties and really mix all over the diamond in a way that's useful to rosters, and in some respects sounded like the way they were talking about him, but in other respects, like, he kind of got obviously pushed for more than he was ready to do right off the bat. And maybe if he doesn't dive for that catch against the Phillies in I want to say 2022 or 2023, probably 2023, because I think it was Grifol was involved. That doubleheader, the game that they won, maybe has an entirely different White Sox trajectory.
Jim, how about you? What's catching your attention around Major League Baseball?
Yeah, Romy's biggest mistake might have been living too close to Grifol and Mike Tozar, and just being too familiar and liking him too much to thrust so much on him. Yeah, it's, aside from the Yankees, Brewers, Mariners, etc., like, Shohei Ohtani feels like he's being slept on a little bit again, or like he's up to 4 innings starting, and 4 good innings, and like, I wasn't expecting, I guess, he's only thrown 19 innings so far this year. So like, he's not doing what he had done yet with the Angels, but just the fact that he's going to win the MVP again. And he's doing as a pitcher too, just, it's dumb in like the most stunning way. And the fact that like, it's just like, he's 30, he's had some injuries, like he's doing it again, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. It's happening, and it is stunning.
Ohtani's probably gonna have to start a postseason game. The Dodgers are still in first place, but they're only 2 games ahead against San Diego. San Diego refuses to fade in the National League West. They continue to put pressure on the Dodgers, but yeah, I'm with you, Jim. It's back to the whole Tungsten O'Doyle tweets again, but this time the Dodgers are winning. Yeah, he continues to impress, but I'm sure as soon as he gets to 5 innings, the Dodgers will be confident enough to be like, yeah, he's going to start game 1 for us.
Or if he gets to 5 innings and then blows out his arm again because he's a Dodger, and that seems to be what they do. But here's hoping he survives. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's very rare for what we are witnessing right now with Ohtani. And really, there's nobody else. Like, there's no one in the minor leagues. No one is a two-way player at the level that Shohei Ohtani is at. So this might be a once-in-our-lifetime type of player that's producing these type of results. But that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine Podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, we'll have all the game recaps and all the action and follow-up of this series, as James will be covering those games for us at the stadium. You can check out and read his work daily at soxmachine.com. Jim will have more with his visit with the Winston-Salem Dash and catching up on all of the news with the White Sox and also the minor league affiliates as well daily. Again, visit the website, soxmachine.com. But if this is the first time that you have listened to the podcast, you can subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. You can also listen and watch the show on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/soxmachine. We also post videos as well on our channel, some of our more long-form conversations. You can check out those videos on our channel as well. You follow us on social media. We're on all the platforms at Sox Machine. You can follow James at JR Fegan. You can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. If you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox and Major League Baseball, sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber at soxmachine.com. Monthly plans start at $5. And you get an ad-free version of both the podcast and the website. Unlocks the comment section for you. We're going to have Sweet Night soon with our Veterans Committee, our VC members later in August for the White Sox and Yankees series. We still have a couple spots open in our VC, so if you would like to be part of our Veterans Committee and have direct access to both Jim and James, you can inquire within at soxmachine.com. The Sox Machine Podcast is a production of soxmachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margalus and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for listening and watching.